Hi, my name is Cece from Cece's Creations, and welcome back to the 12 Days of Christmas. Today is day 9, and I'll be using the my friend Rudolph sketch that you can find at my Etsy store. And I'm going to be working on a mixed media artboard by Canson. So I'll be using graphite paper to transfer the sketch. And if you've noticed from the beginning, I was showing the normal size of the picture. I actually enlarged it by 25% so that I can get a bigger image, because I knew I was going to be coloring with paintbrushes, and that's a little difficult for me. So I opted for a slightly bigger image. So for this particular one, I'm going to use two main materials. The first one is pearlescent acrylic, liquid acrylics by F&W, which is a $1 Rowney product. And then that's for the background, and then I'll be coloring with gouache. Now, I'm not very well versed in gouache, and I have discovered a few things about it. I find a medium that is slightly more difficult to manage than watercolor, although it is kind of like it's an acrylic emulsion that reacts really well to water, and it's also opaque. So a lot of people say that it's kind of like an opaque watercolor. I find it a little tougher to work with than watercolor, honestly, but I'll talk about that a little bit more in more details later on. So for the background, I took a clean flat brush and I went around the upper part of the background. I did that just so that the liquids would not go all over the place, but it didn't matter to me if some of it ended up on one of the two characters, because I know that the gouache will cover it. But here's what it looks like. This is shimmery, and I wish I could have captured the way the shimmer was dancing on the artboard when it was wet, because it was quite spectacular. But I really like the effect, and I decided to use the silver one for the bottom, the snow. I figured that would give me a nice, almost kind of like natural reflection of what snow is when it has a little like a sheen of ice on top. And here I'm trying to show how the particles are dancing, but it obviously is not picking it up really well. But this is what it looks like when it's dry. It's quite stunning, actually. I really like it. And this is a medium that I'm going to be working on more or with later on. But right now I kind of think that all the materials that I'm using today I've experimented with, which is awesome, because I get to share my first experience with you guys. Okay, so on to the watercoloring or the gouaching. I just invented a verb here. I'm not sure why I did not use a good watercolor brush. This is like just your standard cheapy brush that I got in a pack, I think at Michael's. But you can see from the top of the hat that it's quite opaque. And I'm out of frame right now, but you'll be able to see what I'm doing in just a second. What I did for the coat was I wet the whole coat or jacket, whatever, with water first, and then I added the gouache, and I think that helped. The one thing that I discovered is that if you wait too long and if you try to lift some of the gouache, it will be difficult. It will almost like lift it. How can I say this? It lifts like a big chunk of it at the same time, and not necessarily what you have under your brush. So it was quite frustrating at time. But like I said, I've experimented quite a bit on this project, and I can tell you that I'm going to use it a lot more. The other thing too is it helps if while you pick up the gouache, that you dilute it a bit with water. It's better to do that, I guess. You can always go back and add a second layer But again, these are all things that I've discovered as I was using the gouache for the first time. And I've used it another time before to make a portrait, which I did not record, but I used it in a different way. I used it strictly as a paint because I wanted something flat. And that's another reason why I opted for gouache, because the background is so shimmery. I wanted something flat on top. And if I had used acrylic paint, especially artist grade, I would have had the plasticky feel to it, and I didn't want that. So I really wanted the objects to be flat, or not flat, yeah, matte. Yes, matte. That's the term I was looking for. So I've slowed down some of the parts so that you can see like the important parts I've slowed down, but the rest I've had to speed it up because otherwise you would be looking at almost like a 2-hour video. But here you can see that I'm taking a different approach. I wet the whole section. I diluted a bit the gouache while I was picking it up with my brush. And then I was able to go back in and have that nice blended look to it. So I guess this is the best approach in my case anyways for what I was going for. The other thing that I have also discovered, and I'm not sure why I'm not having any success, but I thought I was under the impression that you could add gouache to a pan, let it dry, and then you'd be able to reactivate it if you need it. Well, I had gouache on the cover of where I store my tubes, and I had some gouache left over, so I let it dry and then I closed the cover, and I figured next time I can use that. I was not able to grab any of the color from these swatches, so I'm not sure if there's something that I need to do in order to not waste any of the gouache, because as it turns out, I have to take some out of the tube. And you end up wasting it because you don't use it all. So I don't know if any of you have experience with using gouache. Let me know. Maybe there's something I'm not doing right. But this is what I found out. The other thing I want to mention is that I traced the design with the graphite paper that left me with a light outline. Then I went over it with which one was it? Not the PITT artist pen, the other one, the Micron pen. And I did that because I knew I was going to go over with the pearlescent colors in the background, and I was afraid that that might cover all the lines that I had transferred, and I didn't want to have to go over the lines after I'm all done. Like I wasn't sure how everything would react together. So I figured, okay, let me just trace the lines with something that is permanent and waterproof, and then I can just work on that. So the result of this is that I have the background, which is already done and over with. The trees are traced. The black really is still black even after I've added the pearlescent acrylics. And then what I ended up doing with the image, the reindeer and the little girl, is the way I painted it. It's almost as if it's kind of like a no line technique. So I tried to go over the black lines as much as possible, and you'll see that my light source, you'll notice that my light source is coming from the left. And so most of my black lines that are exposed to that light, I will cover them with white gouache. And this is the one thing that I really, really liked about gouache, is that the white covers everything. So it's really awesome to do that kind of illustration if that's the look you're going for. So I do see a use for gouache as opposed to watercolor, because of course, if you grab white watercolor, it's not opaque, so you'll have to work hard at covering something. The boots, the scarf, and the mittens were first painted in red, and then I added raw umber on top of that to get a burgundy color. Next, I'll be working on one of the trees. I wanted a tree with lights in it and some kind of a halo. So I sprayed water and then I started dropping different colors of pearlescent acrylics. And I'm going to do this in between working in different sections of the two characters. So essentially dropping one color, letting it dry, wetting it again, and dropping another color to create those blooms. And then I'll be using gouache around it, a very diluted gouache, to create that halo. And it worked really well. And here you can see the white titanium gouache in action and how well it covers the black lines. It's just perfect. Of course, I was adding water because I wanted to blend the color, but if you use it straight up, I guess it's kind of like, it's white paint. I mean, it's an acrylic emulsion. So yeah, essentially that's what it is. The hair is burnt sienna, light yellow, and raw umber on top. And don't get attached to that girl's face because she took about 5 different versions. I struggled with that one. I was trying to get the look that I was going for. I wasn't able to achieve it right away. So yeah, it was a little difficult. I love the shimmer so much. I can't wait to experiment more with these pearlescents. And I've had them for 3 years maybe. But there's so much that I need to experiment with. I don't think I'll ever get bored. So here I'm just adding highlights with the white gouache. And again, it is really fun to do highlights because it's so opaque, and yet you can dilute it with water so you can get like a perfectly white blend. I love it. I really, really do. I wasn't sure how to color the eyelid of the reindeer, so I added, I think at first it was a dark color, then I covered it up a bit with some white, and just to end up adding some decorations to the eyelid, just to cover up some of the boo-boos that I made there. I told you that face would disappear, didn't I? She's back to just being beige. I used the brown PITT artist pen or sepia to add the little fringe at the end of the scarf. And this is what it is, the copper plate gold iridescent. I think it's in ink, if I'm not mistaken. So I colored the buttons on the jacket with that. And I used the silver pearlescent to color the jingle bells. Are they jingle bells? Yeah, that's what they are, jingle bells. And here I'm adding some shading to the jacket. And I really liked the way the shading ended up, but it was a learning curve, really. I don't know if you've noticed, but I did struggle with the underbelly of the reindeer. By the time I did the coat and the hat, I was a little bit more experienced, so it went better. So now I'm going to address the face. So the underpainting is a mixture of white and shell pink. Then I used a mix of beige and raw umber for the shadows. And the cheek will be done with a mix of beige and shell pink. No, that's not true. Shell pink and a little bit of red. In this case, it's called Carmine. To remove the black line at the horizon where the snow starts, I added white gouache. And instead of doing shadowing underneath the girl and the reindeer, and I'm sorry I forgot to film, but I also added titanium white gouache with a little bit of the blue mixed in there. And that kind of creates the shadow at the same time as give a little bit of dimension to the actual snow. Here's how I dressed the eye on the reindeer. I added some white dots on the eyelid. I think it's cute. It looks as if the reindeer has some makeup on. Okay, so you've noticed that I did not address the fur with paint. That's because I'm going to use liquid appliqué, which is a textured dimensional paint. And it's often used to imitate snow. However, I'm not going to use it as such. I'm only going to use its dimensional characteristics. Because I'll be adding some flocking powder on top of that. That's a Marthat Stewart Crafts product. And it makes it so fluffy. It really looks like nice, soft, fake fur. But it was fun to do. So what I did is before the liquid appliqué has had time to dry, I added the powder and then I let that dry. And once everything was done, I shook off the excess, and you're going to see in a few minutes how it looks when it's dry. It's really, really nice, and it's subtle enough so as not to steal the show, because I didn't want that to be the main focus, obviously, of the canvas, but it's just a perfect accent. Now I'm going to add Rudolph's nose, which is a red rhinestone. And I do have to say something about the image. It kind of looks as if the little girl and Rudolph are sharing one nose, when in fact it's meant to be that the girl is, or Rudolph's face is hiding part of the girl's face. I don't know why, but I'm seeing them kissing all of a sudden, but it's not. She's about to give him a hug, so that's why her face is partially hidden by Rudolph. But I love this piece for all the learning experience that I got out of that. And I'll be definitely using more of the gouache and the pearlescents. Oh, and I also added the white dots to the sky. Very little. I didn't want to steal the show again, just like the fur. I just wanted that to be part of the background. This concludes day 9's video. I hope you've enjoyed watching it. I also want to take a few moments to thank those that have purchased a bundle of 12 images. That is really appreciated. I'm thankful for all of you. And to those that are interested in downloading the bundle of the printable coloring pages, I will make sure to leave the link to my Etsy store in an iCard as well as in the description of this video. I also want to mention that I kind of took an involuntary break in between day 8 and day 9. That is because I do have a part-time job that keeps me busy during Christmas. It's a heavy season for the store that I'm working for. So I hopefully will be able to deliver the next 3 days that are remaining in a timely manner, or consecutively, but again, I cannot make any promises. That is something that's out of my control. But I thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below, and I will see you tomorrow or later or soon. Bye.